Okay, so I usually give it if we're live, and we solved our technical issues. The sound actually sounds quite wonderful, and those headphones look good quality, so you'll be able to use them for future items. Of course, I had to make my own. Um, so we'll give it a few minutes to see if anyone wants to drop in. But of course, we'll have the recording saved for later that you can share on your social media. And I will also put on my podcast, which is the Big L Podcast. And it's going out live right now on my YouTube channel, which is Pink Flame of Liberty. Now, I want to explain, like, when I do these sorts of things, I tend to do a different type of format. Than many others, because I find that during any kind of election season, it's the same thing over and over. Like, it's the same questions, the same, and you hear it a million times. I prefer to have a conversation rather than like a interview, and I don't script stuff out. I just like start talking and see where the conversation goes. Sometimes it works out great, sometimes not, but I find that it's a lot more spontaneous. I don't like the plastic planned conversations. That's just not what I enjoy listening to.
Excellent. I agree with you.
Awesome. And hey, Todd, over on the side, if you look on the side of your screen, you'll see that we can see live comments if people post on my page. If they do it on a page where it's been shared, it doesn't show up. It's kind of a glitch a little bit in the program. So if anyone ever posts any questions, they just need to go to my secretary page and comment there, and the live comments will show up. So why don't we start? I would like to hear a little bit about yourself, about your libertarian background, about why you're running, some of your major ideas, like whatever you would like to share that's, genuinely from your heart.
Okay. I've been a libertarian for a long time. I just didn't know it until 2015. I was found out I was not a Republican in '92 at the Texas State Convention. They left me behind, and I walked away. In 2012, the Democrats wanted me to run for Congress. They were very excited about my proposals, but I'm just not a Democrat. So I consider myself independent until I ran into the Libertarians in 2015.
Awesome. And for those who don't know, what's your home state?
I live in Texas.
Okay. I could tell by your accent, but maybe not everybody could. If you said bless your heart, then I would know for sure. That's the best multi-use expression, I think, that's out there.
It is indeed.
So there's like a lot of different flavors of libertarian, and like, what would you consider yourself? Like, if someone asked you to describe what kind of libertarian you are, what would you describe ideologically wise? Now, I know when we met and we started talking, the first thing I care about another libertarian is if they're a good person. And ideology comes second. I find in politics today, there's not enough people that are just good people. Like, for instance, Gary Johnson, I didn't agree with him on a lot of things, but I adore Jerry Johnson because I think he's genuinely a good man. So, and from talking with you, I wouldn't have invited you on if I didn't think you were a good person, because I deal with enough people that I don't like. So, though, when it comes to like your unique ideas, like, how would you describe yourself?
I'm a problem solver. I want what many libertarians want. We want less government. We want to be left alone. But we've got to get there. We've got so many challenges facing our nation. We've got huge debt. Now we've got a virus that's got us shut down. We've got to resolve these issues. We can't just throw it up in the air and say, forget about it, we're going to start over fresh. If we want to get where we want to be, if we want small government, we're going to have to do some stuff. I want to address the national debt. It is both the biggest threat we face and also the biggest opportunity. As we pay down the debt, we will free up trillions of dollars because every dollar that is paid to the debt reduces the debt and becomes available to loan. We can take many government programs and make them loans. We can replace all farm aid, all foreign aid, roads and bridges, infrastructure. We can replace all of those. The entire stimulus package, we could have replaced it with loans to individuals, loans to corporations, loans to small business. And as they pay those loans back over time, they will reduce the debt more. After a while, the debt will be gone. Yes, $26 trillion can disappear. And then we can do away with income tax. So the debt is a vehicle to eliminate, to get to everything that we want.
I agree with you. The debt is a huge issue that sometimes gets put aside, because what's interesting is in this whole virus debate, we hear people, they line up on each side without much empathy for the other. And we'll hear, like, if we want businesses to reopen, that you're selfish and you just want to kill people, and the rhetoric. But I'm thinking to myself, you're wanting these stimulus plans. Is that not selfish to be borrowing against the future of the young people, of people who aren't even born today, that we think that we could sell them into debt slavery? I often I'm a religious person. I don't put that on anybody else, but I come from a Christian background, so I often refer to the scriptures quite a bit. But I think there's a lot in any holy text, no matter what the faith is, that's just wisdom, wisdom of various cultures. And at least in the Christian scriptures, it often says, that, he's the debtor is a slave to the person who holds the debt.
Exactly.
And that's what we're doing right, not just to us, but to people not even yet born, who can't possibly consent. In the debate in Kentucky was 2 nights ago, I forget what candidate said it. I believe it was Judge Gray, who said that he just had a grandchild born, and the first thing he thought was, okay, you were just born like, $178,000 or whatever it was in debt, buddy, pay up. And it's his little baby. And that really struck me. We do have a question from Tyler, and I do like interacting with members. And he had said, what, in your opinion, separates you from the other candidates? And what's your plan to influence delegates to vote for you?
I have asked the other candidates to address the national debt. I've asked the other candidates to address immigration. I've asked the other candidates how they anticipate winning this election. I can answer each of those. I've already talked with you about the debt. For immigration, I have been on both aisles of Congress, both houses in Congress, every office, offering them a solution to to both national debt and immigration. Allow the immigrant who wants to benefit himself by paying towards our debt in exchange for the right to remain here and the right to enter, the right to live free. I understand that libertarians just do not like that. They consider it a tax. I'm sorry, it is not a tax. This is a way that we can allow them to come in, even though Congress doesn't want them to come. So some members of Congress don't want them to come.
And we
If
have a
we could
little bit
have
of lag.
open borders, if we could have borders like Europe, I'd be all for it. Let them come. No problem. We don't. Let them voluntarily choose if they want to come out of the shadows, if they want to come in. Let them file a tax return and include an extra 10% to their debt. Their 1040 becomes their green card. When questioned by the authorities, they hold it up. They say, I paid, I stay.
Okay, also we're getting a little bit of lag, and that's not your fault. It happens with all of these online things. But I think I was able to catch. I'd like to summarize what I believe that you had said in case anyone didn't get it through the lag. It's that your particular plan on immigration would basically be first of all to file income tax and everything like any other citizen, and then pay like a stipend towards obtaining permanent citizenship, and that money would be used to pay down the debt.
Can you hear me, Karen?
I can. We are getting a terrible lag. I don't know why. Phil, can you try leaving the room and coming back in? And we'll see if that clears up the lag. Phil, can you try? Let me try this. Try closing and coming back in. Use the same link because I want to see if it clears up the lag we're having. Okay. Hopefully this will clear up the lag. I don't think he heard me. I actually had to like bounce him, so I'm gonna shoot him a little private message, and we'll see if that clears up the lag. I know some people will probably expect me to challenge him on, like, I obviously don't agree with that particular plan, but I'm not here to be confrontational. I'd like to hear what someone has to say. Obviously, I think if immigrants get away with not paying taxes, good for them. That's just my particular view. I want to just allow the candidates to have some time to say what they wish. I might do a little bit of challenging, but I just want everyone to know that's why I'm not doing any sort of challenges at this point. So, oh, I sent that message to the wrong person. Poor Alicia Stern is going to be like, come back in where? I'm going to have to tell her I was on the wrong screen. She's going to be like, what's going on? So thank you, Tyler, for saying that I'm coming in clear. I hear he's coming back in. Let's see. Okay, let's see if the lag is cleared up.
Can you hear me now, Karen?
I'll put the mic back up to your mouth a little more.
Can you hear me now?
Technology. Speak now, Phil.
Can you hear me now?
It's very, very muffled.
Can you
Much
hear me
better.
now?
Yes. Oh, now you're gone again. Oh my
Okay,
God.
wonderful.
Okay, let's see if it keeps if it goes. I sure hope this is a sign of things to come for our online convention. Technology, it's a cruel master. It's cruel. Not
Can you hear me
hearing.
now?
No, we're Todd, we're using StreamYard, which is what most live casters use. Um, keep talking, Phil. Let me see if it's coming through now.
Okay. You had my proposal for immigration pretty clear.
Okay, good.
And I think that we can accept that if that your understanding is very close.
Okay. And I was explaining while you were gone, I have a completely different view. But this isn't a debate. I want to hear what your particular ideas are. You talked about a path to win because you said there's certain things that you would want to hear from other candidates. So what is your answer on that?
We can win this thing if we can carry enough states to get 38 electoral votes away from Donald. As little as 2 states, Pennsylvania and Ohio, would give it to us. If we can carry the suburbs in those states, the suburbs around the great cities, the bedroom communities, then we can win this thing. We need 36% of the state to win it. If we can do that in the suburbs, and I have to point out that many of those suburbs have local affiliates. They have local LP affiliates in the suburbs. I have been in the suburbs around Pittsburgh and in the suburbs around Philadelphia, around Cleveland, around Cincinnati. If we can carry those suburbs, if those local affiliates will say to their friends, neighbors, the local press, we have a presidential candidate coming to our town. Come and hear him. I believe that I have asked all of our presidential candidates to pick a state and to develop a plan to win it. I don't know how successful they've been. I've got a plan for Pennsylvania and Ohio.
Okay. And why Pennsylvania and Ohio?
Well, I have a natural gas proposal. I want to make natural gas a fuel for the cars and trucks, the existing cars and trucks. Most people who have direct fuel injection can convert their existing vehicle to burn natural gas or gasoline with the flip of a switch. Allow them the option. The natural gas costs 80 cents a gallon.
Okay.
If they can benefit.
There were some questions that were asked at the Kentucky debate that I always like to hear the answers to. Will you, and was asked of all the candidates, will you, if you're not the nominee, will you be supporting whoever the nominee ends up being?
I so hope that our nominee is not one that is going to repudiate the national debt and eliminate Social Security, eliminate Medicare, and hurt people. I cannot support that.
Well, let me run an idea past you because I faced this in 2016. It's no secret that I was not a fan of Bill Weld. That's putting it
Mhm.
mildly. I'm probably a bigger fan of Satan than I am of Bill Weld. Because at least Satan is honest that he's a demon. Um, but I still supported the ticket because I think with third party politics, it's different than first party politics, or main party. First party was the wrong word, because we fight for our life each election cycle, and that I was supporting the party more than supporting the candidates because our down ticket candidates rely upon the top of the ticket, no matter who they are, to secure us ballot access. So that while I might not like the top of the ticket, which I don't think is a chance of that happening this time, I like all of the candidates. But could you see your way clear to support whoever the candidate is for the sake of the party, even if you didn't particularly like the candidate?
If the candidate will develop a strategy to carry states, I will help them carry those states. I will support them financially. I will vote for them. I hope that we can find common ground where I can campaign for them. I cannot campaign for someone who is going to wreck the party. And Karen Ann, we have a very grave danger of choosing a nominee that will wreck the party. We cannot survive a candidate who is going to say that he is going to do away with Social Security and Medicare, because that tars all libertarians. Our presidential frontrunner, our presidential candidate, is a spokesman for the Libertarian Party. If the public decides that we're bomb throwers, we're not going to come back from that.
I think my view is, and just so that you know, because I like being completely honest here, you probably would not like me if I were a candidate because you probably consider me a bit of a bomb thrower, but that's okay. I mean, I'm pretty open, as you've seen on your page, that I'm an anarchist, but I'm not running, so don't have to worry about that right now.
Karen, may I interrupt just a moment?
Sure.
You're not going to hurt people. You
I would.
believe
Okay, well, keep going.
you believe that firmly that we can do away with government without hurting people, and I am all for that. That's fine. Don't hurt people. I could support you.
If I were a candidate, I'm just being honest, I don't know if you could. I'm a radical, but I'm not a candidate, so it's not on the table. I just like being out in the open. When I was talking with Mark Whitney when I interviewed him before, I don't think he knew like my particular point of view, so we had a very lively discussion on that. But to me, it doesn't matter. We're both libertarians, and I could disagree with you on issues. You could disagree with me on issues. I've come to a position in my life where it's people before politics, that people are more than walking bundles of ideas, and there's just too much attacking going on. That there was something I developed. Now, this isn't unique to me. I'm using terms and words that people have used before me. But when I got the platform committee together, because I'm the chair of the platform committee this year, and the rules I set out for them was these two rules: disagree, but do so agreeably. Mean what you say, but don't be mean when you say it. And I think that those two things could go a long way to elevating political discourse, because it seems like we can't just say someone's wrong without saying that, they're wrong and they probably kick every dog on the way to the gas station or something. It's just absolutely ridiculous the way we demonize each other. So we got some more questions here, but I wanted to agree with you on a point where you had said you might not be able to campaign for a certain candidate. And I get that, because on the Johnson Weld campaign, I wouldn't take any campaign literature that had Weld's name on it. So all of my campaign literature only mentioned Johnson. And that was kind of universally thought in Colorado. The yard signs we passed out were just Johnson yard signs. So I get that. I was not a happy camper. But I still supported the party, and I pulled the lever for Johnson Weld. Without hesitation for without hesitation for Johnson, but I did have to hold my nose for Mr. Weld. Can you tell that I wasn't a fan? But I think if we survived Bob Barr and Wayne Allen Root, I don't think the national ticket really can do us much harm. Without offending you, I often say that the national ticket's the beauty pageant, and that the real political work is done down ticket. And I see the job, unless they win, which would be wonderful. And I never say someone never can win. I think our chances are always a long shot, but I never say never, because who would have, let's just think of it this way. If I said to you in December that within 3 months, everyone's ass was going to be locked up in their houses and all the businesses would be closed, you'd look at me like I sprouted a third eyeball right in front of you. Things happen, and a libertarian winning can happen. So I never rule that out, but realistically, I do think that the job of our top of the ticket candidate is to grow the party. If they're not going to win, they need to grow the party.
Karen, do you remember what I said about the suburbs?
Yes.
Okay. Those same meetings where they say to the friends, neighbors, the local press, come and hear our presidential candidate. He's coming to our town. At the same time, local and district candidates can attend that same event and get FaceTime with the curious people that have come to hear me, or, well, hear our presidential candidate.
Right.
We can build the bottom up, and I will campaign with any district candidate. You know, I could appear with local candidates also. I hesitate to. The presidency is far removed from local, so I don't know how much that would benefit them. But local and district candidates can sure get FaceTime with the voters.
You know, I've started to have a view about politics that I look at sometimes at the beginning, like if you look at the maybe it's just rose-colored glasses of the past. We always like to think like the past was this wonderful halcyon time when it really wasn't. But I look at like when the country first started, politics were very much a community affair rather than like a slick big business. It was neighbor to neighbor, and it was little town revivals almost. And I think the path to victory for third parties is to get back to that, to make it much more personal rather than the slick packaged thing. So I think I would agree with you there that in bringing back in, as I always do, I make my religious analogies, that when I was really, really active in the church, there was something that we did to try to bring people in called friendship evangelism, you know, where you actually invest yourself in people's lives. And I believe in friendship politicking as an analogy, where you don't view people as a means to an end, like you just want their vote and then you move on to kiss the next baby and shake the next hand, that you really actually care about the issues, that you bring the humanity back. And I think you and I could agree there, even if we have a different point of view on certain policies. Tyler had another question, and I think this is always a recurring question. I think it's important. Do you think that our national candidate should be bound to the national platform, or should they have the freedom to contradict the national platform? It's not a trick question.
I'm a libertarian. I believe in free will. The platform, it need not be a straitjacket, but we are for sure going to choose somebody who adheres to it.
So let's say, well, for instance, there is a position you said earlier, which you do deviate from the national platform, which and now I'm not saying that makes you a heretic, burn the witch. That's not it at all. Because I deviate from the national platform on some things. So how do you think a candidate should handle that? Like, this is my view, and I'd like to hear yours, but I wanted to give you an idea of where I was going. I was always in, like Johnson. Let's get Johnson as an example. He believed in the bake the cake thing, if you remember the whole thing. And I respect the fact that he believed that, but I didn't like the way he led the public to believe that that's what the Libertarian Party believed, because we don't. And I think he should have said, this is my view. My party doesn't necessarily hold this view, but this is my view. And I think that's the way candidates should handle it, because I think we're being dishonest with the public if we lead them to believe that the party stands for something that it doesn't. And I'm wondering how you feel about that.
Well, absolutely. Those people that want to do away with Social Security and Medicare, that's not in our platform.
Well, it actually is. That's okay, but I'm Rain Man when it comes to the platform. Like, I'm the platform girl. The National Party, when they get people who like call all hot and bothered about the platform, they refer them to me for questions. Our platform actually does call for that. How we do it's another matter. Is it an immediate thing? Is it a gradual thing? There's room for interpretation on that.
Can I tell you how I would do it?
Yes, that's why you're here.
Okay, wonderful. For Social Security, the first part, we're looking at $37 trillion worth of shortfalls. We have enough bonds we'll start chewing up the bonds in 23, maybe 22 now with the COVID thing. And by 32, 33, they're going to be gone. At which point, 80% of Social Security will be covered by payroll taxes. The other 20% is a shortfall that we will eat. We will have additional deficit spending to cover it. So, my debt plan frees up trillions of dollars. We can pay the shortfalls in Social Security every month. Then we can stretch those bonds out into the mid-40s, about 44, 45. At the same time, we can gradually privatize it, where today's teenagers would only pay their 12.4% to a private account. They would pay nothing to Social Security. When they retire, they would get nothing from Social Security. They'd get their private account.
I need to walk back something I said. I think I might have said something out of turn. The platform calls more for privatization than elimination. To me, kind of the same thing. But I realized that I might have been a little misleading. So I just want to correct myself there. So continue.
I feel so much better. I was not going to argue the point, but I don't recall ever seeing that we were going to wipe out Social Security.
Yeah, I was a little hasty. Privatize is, in fact, more accurate. You're correct.
Okay. So you've got the 12.4% that comes out of everybody's check. Well, between them and their employer, they get pay 12.4%. For 20-year-olds, 20% of that pays to Social Security, 80% to a private account. For 30-year-olds, 40%. For 40-year-olds, 60%. For 50-year-olds, 80%. Us old folks, we're going to get one check. Everybody else going to get two. But we're going to get one from Social Security because we only pay into Social Security. Social Security will die out with today's 20-somethings, and it will be gone. And we will not have $37 trillion of additional debt associated with it, because we will pay cash as we go, as we pay down the debt.
And I wanted to tell you, if I say something you think is wrong, feel free to challenge, because I don't ever take it personally. And sometimes we all speak hasty sometimes. So challenge is good, as long as it's done in kindness.
Challenge is fine. I wanted to verify for myself before I argued with Karen Ann. Come on now.
Tyler has another question, and I'm going to put this one, I'm going to see if I can see how to put this on the screen. There we go. He asks, do you believe that taxation is theft? And if you do, what's your idea on funding for the federal government? And if you don't, I'm adding to his question, what is your view on taxation?
Taxation is a necessary evil as long as the debt exists. When the debt is paid, I envision that those trillions of dollars are pumping. They're loaned out, they are coming in, they're reducing the debt, they're loaned out, they're coming in, they're reducing the debt. And they keep on being loaned, and they keep on coming in. After the debt is gone, that money can cover the rest of government, and we can do away with income tax. I believe by then we can do away with a good chunk of property tax also.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, because I think Tyler's question was more than just income tax. I think it was other forms of taxation as well.
I'm a states' rights guy. I don't think that the federal government has the right to tell states what to do, but I want to make it possible for states to do what they have to do without taxation.
You know something I'm noticing with your mic, when you lean back, I think you might have a short or something in your connection, because when you come more forward, you don't cut out.
Well, I will come forward.
Okay, because I think maybe in your jack connection on your computer, it might be a little loose. Because I've been watching, and I notice that each time you lean back, it gets a little cutty outy, if that's a word.
There it is.
Yeah, a question that Todd had asked. I'm going to word it a little bit different than he did. I'm going to see if I can figure out how to get that. Yeah, I got it off the screen here. What do you interpret the party pledge about the non-initiation of force to achieve political or social goals? What is your understanding of what that means?
We don't need to use force.
Would you consider taxation to be force? I'm just asking. I'm not trying to get gotcha.
Taxation is a necessary evil. I believe it to be evil. I believe it to be force. I want to do away with it.
Okay.
I want to get away from it, but I'm not one of these guys that says we're going to wave a magic wand and suddenly, boom, no more taxation. I would be lying to you if I said those words, and I'm not going to lie to you.
There have been past candidates, like going back like quite a ways, who had a plan in order, like for instance, to stop federal funding of Social Security. They would say something like, why don't we sell off the federal lands and pay back everybody what they paid into Social Security? What do you think about those sorts of plans?
Well,
and Andrew Yang said something similar when it came to funding a UBI, interestingly enough.
They all miss about 3 different points. Point number 1, the entire land of the contiguous United States is valued at $24 trillion. The privately owned, the publicly owned, the other land, the federal land, all together is $24 trillion. We're 26 trillion in debt already. We can't get there from here.
Well, that's the entire debt. They were just speaking of what's owed to people for Social Security.
I don't think we can get there from here because Social Security's got a $37 trillion shortfall in addition to our existing debt. So you're about 13 trillion short on that. But let me add, Karen Ann, that includes all private property. When we include the federal lands, we include vast tracts of land that have no buyers. Nobody wants them. That's why we've got them. When the states joined the Union, they deeded those lands to us, and the BLM at this point, with royalties, with mines, with grazing rights, with water rights, with forestry, is barely breaking even. The expense of maintaining the land, keeping law enforcement on the land, is as great as what we're bringing in. It's wasteland. So my proposal is make it economically feasible to give it to the states. We do this by finding ways to add to the value of that land can bring, such as hemp production on those lands. If we add hemp leases, it's a drylands crop. It can grow in scrubland. It can grow where there is limited water. It's cold hardy. We can grow hemp and we can make it a cash crop. And that can get us down the road to the point that we can sell off the lands. But to sell something, you have to have a buyer for it. The farmers, those who graze on the land, are happy to pay their little bit a year. I think it's maybe $40 a year or something for some of the grazing rights. No, please, if somebody knows that number, I would love to hear it. I don't know that number. It's minimal.
I think a lot will depend upon where the land is. I never really thought much about federal lands when I lived in Florida because there isn't hardly any in Florida, except like. But when I moved to Colorado, I realized how much of our state doesn't belong to us. It is insane how much of Colorado is federal lands. And then what's also happening is allegedly, these national parks and things like that are for the enjoyment of the people, but more and more, some of the we call them the greenies here, not necessarily the Green Party, just the green, the massive
environmentalists.
Yeah, but like out there, they're turning more and more of them into wilderness areas. And in wilderness areas, your average person can't even enjoy that. It's funny. It's like some of these very far left people are very much into like everything needs to be handicapped accessible and that sort of thing. But in wilderness lands, you cannot have anything that has like wheels on them. So if you were in a wheelchair, you can't go in wilderness areas because you can't have anything that's mechanized at all. It all has to be, you have to be on a horse or on foot. And to me, that's just absolutely insane. And that might be very much a Colorado specific issue. That's not a, interest, because each state has like their own, thing. But moving here made me really, really aware of just like how nutty that is. Because it's now the federal lands here belong to the deer. Because like the people can't use it, in those, at least those wilderness areas. It's pretty crazy. Tyler asked, prior to the passage of the 16th Amendment in 1913, the U.S. government funded its operations mostly through excise taxes, tariffs, customs, and public land sales. Would you think that's preferable to the income tax?
One should never hesitate when one is a political candidate.
Actually, I think hesitating is honest.
We had debt prior to the 16th Amendment. We've had debt ever since Andy Jackson's administration. And we had income tax for 30 years of it prior to the 16th Amendment, prior to 1913. We also did not have roads between cities. The pavement ended at the city limits if it got that far.
But we also didn't have cars, so I mean that's
we did not have cars, and that's a very valid point. We do have cars now.
Yes, I'm just saying.
One way or another, we've got to pay for roads until we get to flying machines, which is my personal favorite. But until we get there, we got to pay for roads. That's gas taxes aren't getting it. We've got to, and we've also got that debt that we've got to service.
So are you actually saying, but who will build the roads? I'm just screwing with you. Just screwing with you.
We can fund all of the roads if we will pay down the national debt without a penny of tax increase, tax expense. Because everything that we pay from the debt, the fund that builds as we reduce the debt, every penny is tax-free. Taxes don't create it. So those funds are separate.
I'm going to ask you a totally off the wall question, and you might not have an answer to it. I have an answer to it, and I'm always just curious. Out of all of the past LP presidential candidate tickets, which one was your favorite?
Well, I came to the LP in 16 and 15.
Yeah, I meant before. So, though, if you looking back in the history, you know, I only came to the LP. Most people think I've been around a lot longer than I have. I only came to the LP in 2014, so we're about the same, you know, vintage. But I have a favorite past candidate, and I was just curious if you did, and if you don't, that's okay. I'm a history.
I do not. I know Mary Ruwart, and I think she would have made a fantastic president. But apparently, we did not elect her. We didn't nominate her.
Yeah, we picked Bar Root instead.
And I believe that's a Republican. Is that right?
And they immediately went back to being Republicans, just like our buddy Bill Weld.
Yeah. Libertarians are not Republicans. We choose a Republican marquee quite frequently, but we're not Republicans.
I know. we're not conservatives. Well, I mean, we're not. It's difficult for people to understand that, I think, sometimes. Well, first, let me get this out of the way. I love it when Republicans join the LP. So I'm not one of those that say, you know, like, I'm thrilled to death that Justin Amash is here. And I don't care who gets mad at me for that. I am thrilled he is here. And I hope we do not eviscerate him before he has time to grow into it. Because in listening to him in some of the debates, I realized that he has not yet fully embraced the metamorphosis from conservative to big L libertarian. And I hope that we give him the time to do that and don't murder him first. Whenever I bring a new libertarian into the party, I always want to protect them from the other libertarians for a while.
It is definitely a trial by fire.
You know, I didn't meet any other libertarians for a while. I didn't come to the party from other libertarians. I read the platform and switched my party registration without ever talking to another libertarian. And I was a libertarian for about 4 months on my own before really meeting other ones. And I'm glad, because I think if I hadn't encountered libertarians within my first month, I would have ran away screaming. But I kind of got to incubate on my own for a while, and I'm very, very grateful for that.
It is definitely a trial by fire. There are many, many, many good people in this party.
Oh, yeah, I'm saying this is my tribe, you know. I can pick on it, but if a Republican came here and started picking on it, I'd be like, I can say my sister is ugly, but don't you dare say my sister is ugly, because I'll kick your ass.
There you go.
You know, it's one of those. It's my tribe. It's my people. So, you know, Todd had a great question here. And so did Tyler. I'm going to get back to one of Tyler's. These two are coming up with the questions. They're doing my job. Todd said, what about Trump's border wall? Would you dismantle the wall? Would you repeal the spending that's being done on the wall?
You know, that's a very good question. I haven't considered it. What I have considered is the wall doesn't need to be there, but I have not considered exactly what to do with it. I think part of it might make good highway barriers, you know, bridge railings and such.
Recycle it.
Recycle it, yeah. But the reality is that no matter what I want, and it's just saying I am elected to the presidency, it doesn't matter what I want. We are not going to open the border. We are not going to have a European-style border on our southern border. So I want to make it possible for the people who want to come to be able to come. I want to make
full
it
disclosure, I'm an open borders person. Full disclosure.
I'm all for, hey, a European border is fine with me. You know, they are pretty well open borders. That's fine with me. We can't pass it through Congress.
I'm glad I lived in Florida for a really long time. I grew up in Florida. I've only been in Colorado, I think, I'm bad with time, 6 or 7 years. So whenever I think of the wall, I'm like, I think people from Florida realize how silly it is, because we're like, Florida exists and we're all beach, and we had people washing up on the beach all the time. A wall just is ridiculous to anyone who lived in Florida for any amount of time, because it's like, yeah, put the wall there and it's just like things will go other ways. You know, Florida's a big feeler out there saying, come on over. You know, I always used to joke it's a big hurricane feeler, but it's also just come on in. We're here for you. Now, Tyler asked, now this is a tough one, and it took me a while to come to my position on this. What's your view on intellectual property and copyright, patents, and that sort of thing?
I believe that if you work for something, it's yours. If you have worked for it, if you have originated it, it is yours to give away. It is not somebody else's to take just because you did the work and they didn't have to. The patents are in the Constitution, and I completely support them.
Okay, full disclosure, I don't, but just so that you know.
For a period of time. I do not understand, and truly, Karen Ann, I am dumbfounded that you can to re-patent something like this. Shrekley, I think his name was, repatented medicines that
Yeah.
had been in the public domain for 20 years, and he repatented them, and they happened to be medicines that people needed to survive. And he just jacked the price up. That is wrong. That is evil. I do not know enough about patent law to understand why that is possible.
I don't either, to be honest with you. I work in law. I'm a paralegal, but I don't work in that area. It's very, very specialized. I joke that I work for the evil empire because I work for insurance companies who everybody loves to hate. But I love insurance companies.
We need insurance companies.
I've worked in property insurance defense for 20 years now. And my first decade was in fraud cases. And there's a lot of insurance fraud out there, boy. Now I do coverage, and coverage cases are sad because there's no good guy or bad guy. It just comes down to, does your policy cover this or not? And it can be very sad. Fraud cases I love because there's a bad guy. It's easy when there's a bad guy, you know.
You got somebody to go after.
Right. When it doesn't cover, you feel bad for the people who lost property and they're in economic distress. But the fact is there was a contract and the contract didn't cover it. You know, that tugs at my heartstrings. Tyler asked, what would be your plan to end the drug war? And would you commit to pardon all nonviolent drug offenders?
I want to decriminalize the use of all drugs and
what about the sale?
I said I want to decriminalize the use of all drugs, and I want to license vendors. I want to leave licensing to the states, let them figure out what they need. I want the federal government to be out of the drug war.
It sounds like what you're favoring then is legalization and not decriminalization.
No, ma'am.
Okay, please explain.
Decriminalization of use and licensed vendors. We've got to pass it through Congress. It's another one of those things that cannot be unilaterally done by the president.
Well, Colorado kind of proved it can be unilaterally done by the states. I'm so proud of Colorado, I can't even tell you.
But let me tell you, there's a problem.
Oh, I know, but I'm still proud of Colorado.
Okay, there's two problems.
Okay, I'd love to hear them.
Okay, problem number one. If you separate out marijuana and legalize it, then we can't pass decriminalization of all drugs and ending the drug war through Congress. We need the whole shooting match. We need the marijuana in there because the public is
ready for that.
They're ready for that. If we can decriminalize all of it, we can end the drug war. If we can do that, I will do that. Absolutely, I will sign that bill. I will run it through Congress. But I've got to offer Congress cover. We have got to offer Congress cover. We have adulterative poisonings and we have ODs all over the country. That's why I'm offering them decriminalize and license vendors for quality control, for dosage control, for purity levels, and then kick it over to the states.
See, the view I take, I'm very much a fan of the 10th Amendment Center, and I like, so we have a little bit of I like what Colorado did. I just think the states ought to just say, and Oregon has started doing that too. Oregon now, certain user personal use quantities of like cocaine are now completely decriminalized. Not all of Oregon, maybe it was just Portland, but at least some areas. And they didn't wait for the federal government to do that. And in Denver, magic mushrooms have now been decriminalized. Didn't wait for the federal government to do that. And I think the states need to do that more. But what's happened is the federal government has illegitimately tied federal funds to like forcing the states on their knees to comply to their will, which is just we got frozen there a second. Internet, because everyone is home and hitting the cable. Let's see here, because we're coming up on an hour, and that's usually what I try to keep it at. So I'm going to look at some other questions, and I want to give you a chance to say whatever you would like in closing. So I'm going to take 2 more questions, Todd's and Tyler's last ones. The healthcare system, would you favor the repeal of Obamacare?
I would like to do something different. I would like to offer the organizations such as NRA, AARP, the opportunity to negotiate health care coverage for their members. Then I would ask insurance companies to say on their website what they will pay for a procedure. Then I would ask doctors, hospitals, pharmacies, what they will do a procedure for and state it on their website. Mm-hmm. And then leave it up to the consumer to choose the insurer that they want, including Obamacare. For now, I think that Obamacare will die on its own, and we won't have to fight that through Congress. But as a libertarian president, if and when we become a libertarian president, we must have Congress on our side to do the things that we need done. We cannot do it unilaterally. The odds are really, really good. This time, if we manage to get elected, Mike Pence will be our vice president, and the Senate will be breathing down our necks constantly because they want to impeach us. We've got to survive, Karen Ann. We've got to be able to do the things, do the reforms, show the people, show the country, show the world that libertarian proposals can work and will work. We've got to stay alive long enough to do that.
Okay, the last question is Tyler's. If between these 2 federal agencies, assuming you want to abolish them, which you may not, but if you do, which of them would you abolish first, the FBI or the CIA? And maybe you don't want to abolish them because he's assuming you do, and I don't want to assume that.
Sun Tzu said that we are only as good as our spies. I believe that we need the CIA. If local police, if we were able to properly support local police so that they could do their jobs and also not hurt people, maybe we could get by without the FBI. I don't know. I would lean towards FBI. If I had to abolish one, probably FBI.
Because you see some redundancy if it could be handled locally.
A good bit.
Whereas you don't see such redundancy with the CIA. That's what I'm getting out of your answer.
Yeah, I think that I'm comfortable with that. But let me say to you, do I have time to open that one up a little more?
I froze a second. So whatever you just said, lost, start again.
Okay. Can I take another, make
Oh, go right
another
ahead.
note on that? Okay.
Absolutely.
I want law enforcement to carry personal liability coverage,
Amen.
all of them, nationwide. Let them, if they have high risk, let an actuarial look at them and pick up that high risk and raise their rates. We have a lot of good cops. We've got some bad ones.
My ex-husband was a police officer. And
I,
operative word is ex-husband.
I heard that. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
It's a good thing for me.
I hear you. I hear you. But we,
Because let me anecdotally, um, when I married my ex, he wasn't a police officer, and I saw what the job did to him. It spit him up and chewed him up. It really did.
yes, ma'am. Yep. I can fully understand that. What I want to do is I want our cops to have a opportunity to get a tropical vacation for 6 or 8 months for our best cops. I want a Peace Corps for cops. I want to send them, be able to send them at the host country's expense to countries that don't have professional police officers to teach their cops how to be cops. But we only send our very best so that those countries that are sending their immigrants to us as refugees can establish rule of law in their own nation. They can have prosperity in their own nation where their police force is not on the take and they know how to be real cops, not some of the sad sacks we have.
Well, libertarians like to hate on cops a lot, but there's an anecdotal story I like to tell, just with something that happened with my ex, and he, I think, was on the job. It was less than 6 months, and I think this was the turning point and a very big change. Is he came home, and he was never quite the same at this because he got called out to a suicide, and the guy was out in the patio, got in a fight with his girlfriend, went out in the patio and blew his brains out, and he had to go see this. And there really wasn't support to deal with that. You think you can deal with it, you can't. And that is something that gives me a little bit of sympathy because, again, I was married to him, so I understand what it does to a person. It's rough. It can be really, really rough. So in conclusion, first of all, I want to say you have a very wonderful voice. You have a very presidential voice.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it's very pleasing. So, in conclusion, I'd like to give you the last few minutes to say whatever it is that you'd wish to say, because again, this is going to go out. I'll edit out the glitchy parts out on my podcast. So, whatever these last few minutes are yours.
I have a vision for this country. I have a vision for the world of liberty, peace, and prosperity, universal for all. Debt is a shackle. Debt is chains. I want to free ourselves. I want to free our children. I want to free our grandchildren. I want us to be the beacon of hope for the world that we should be. I want the America back that keeps our word. I want the America back that can be counted on. I don't want the America that does gunboat diplomacy, send military to resolve local issues. I want us to fund infrastructure repairs worldwide. I want electricity. I want water. I want proper sewage systems worldwide at no expense to the American taxpayer. we can make those loans available as we pay down the debt to fund all of these programs without a penny of our taxpayer expense, and they will pay our debt off as they pay it back. We can be that beacon for the world. We can have liberty. We can have freedom here. We can have freedom everywhere. We can have freely trading partners. No one in history has ever warred on a freely trading partner. I want freedom.
They said what the saying is, where goods cross borders, guns do not, or violence does not, and I think that is true.
That is true. But Karen Ann, we are on the cusp. We are on the verge of universal peace and prosperity. Can I tell you why?
Sure.
We are fighting with Russia. Russia is scared of attack from the West. They've been trying for generations to have a buffer states. Let's give them one, called Ukraine. Freely able to trade with both East and West, but protected by both East and West from outside their borders, and with free trading with the entire EU without alignment, and free trading with Russia without alignment. As soon as Russia pulls out of Ukraine, we will end sanctions and we will buy rubles. We will instantaneously restore their economy. We have the power to do that. The debt fund will give us the cash to buy the rubles, and we will make a ton of money, and we will reduce our debt in the process. But we will wind up with a free trade zone extending completely around the Northern Hemisphere. And that is the answer to China. If we resolve the issues with China, then we don't need the Seventh Fleet anymore. You know, we can pull back our military when we have trade alliances and we have strong trade with our trading partners and free trade with our trading partners.
I think we're on the cusp of either worldwide. I see two extremes that we're on the cusp of, and it reminds me. Right. And it reminds me again of the Old Testament scripture where God had said to Israel, I put before you life and death. Choose life that you may live. And I see our country almost like at that cusp, that two paths are before us, and we need to choose life that we may live. But death is equally a choice right there. And it's scary. But I do think there's very good reason to be optimistic.
There is good reason to be optimistic if we have another president. The president we have now is not a force for good. He is not a force for peace. He's a force for violence. He's a force for force.
I see him as a force for the baser instinct of man. Not the more noble instincts of man. And you see it in Twitter. I know the Twitter can be somewhat inconsequential, but I think character really comes in there. He's the troll in chief, and it could be funny, like Howard Stern is funny, but that's not really the vision you want to have for humanity.
It's sure not the vision I want for our nation. I want our nation to be that beacon. I want our nation to export liberty. I want that to be our number one export. I want
Amen.
us to be the nation that helps other nations make themselves prosperous. We and even more greatly Europe, in our colonization, in their colonization, they have taken the raw materials from the wealth from the third world. and left them nothing. And we're still doing it. I say no. Let's create jobs in the third world. Let's make loans to entrepreneurs in the third world so that they can build factories to make goods for their own people and pay their people a living wage so that they can buy their own goods. I promise you, Karen Ann, if we do that one thing, they will be buying American products within a generation.
I agree there. Phil, it was really a pleasure speaking with you. I do want to thank Tyler and Todd, because this is the types of conversations I like that are driven by the members and are very interactive. So it was a pleasure speaking with you. And thank you for asking me if I would do this show with you, because I don't normally do interviews, but I find that I really enjoy them. So I hope you have an awesome night, and thank you so much, and the best of luck. And I look forward to working with you on Liberty for many years to come.
Thank you, Karen Ann. And Karen Ann, may I ask one thing?
Certainly.
My website is philgray2020.org. And also my email is philgray00@gmail.com. I live on feedback. I would like your feedback. I would like Todd and
Tyler.
What was the other? Tyler.
Tyler.
I would like to know if I answered their questions properly. Please
Awesome.
ask them to email me, philgray00@gmail.com.
Please say your website again.
My website is philgray2020.org.
And I will put that in the show notes. You know, they've put this little blurb where you can find more information, so I'll definitely do that. Okay, Phil, have an awesome night. We're going to sign off, and I got to get back to work.
Karen Ann, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Have a very blessed evening, okay?
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.